I can hear myself. No,
Yes.
oh, I'm getting feedback from the room. Okay, now you can hear me. Can you have the slides on the screen, please? So yes, my name is Bramus. I'm Chrome Developer Relations Engineer at Google, specifically for CSS and Web UI. I'm also a certified PuTTY dive master, as mentioned, and I also run a blog, bram.us. It's been around for 23 years by now, so it dates back from the static HTML days, basically. So if you have any questions about CSS or scuba diving, feel free to come and ask me. But today I'm not here to talk about scuba diving. Today I am here to talk about this thing, which is a website. You have this overview page, you click on it, you go to the detail page, scroll a bit, you hit back, click on the video thing. And as you can see, like the switch between this overview page and this detailed page is quite jarring.
Welcome.
Like you move from the overview thing to the detail thing, layout shifts around a bit, not that great. But what if I told you that you can add one line of JavaScript to your code, and then you would have this experience, where you click on the thing, and the box nicely grows and shrinks. If you go back, click here, the video keeps playing, and so on and so on. I mean, as a user, I get this. The UX here is much, much better, because I can see that, oh yes, I clicked this box, and this box is growing into the other box. I get it, and I think this is very, very nice. This is a demo built by Maxi Ferreira. You can check it out at the URL. Slides will be shared afterwards, no worries. And how Maxi built it, he built it using view transitions. More specifically, he built it using same document view transitions for single-page applications, because yes, this was an SPA running in the browser. Browser support looks like this. We have shipped it in Chrome 1.11, which dates back from about a year and a half ago, I think. Safari have recently released it in Safari 18, which is great, and the Firefox team are working on it. Spoiler though, this browser support table doesn't actually matter, because this is a nice thing to add to your existing projects as a progressive enhancement. If the browser supports view transitions, they get the nice and moving thing. If the browser doesn't support view transitions, well, they get the existing status quo, which is you click the link and the page changes, and that's it. So what are these view transitions? Well, the view transitions are powered by the View Transition API, which allows you to create these rich, seamless visual transitions between different views of your website. And let me show you an example. Let's start off with a simple one to show you what is going on, because the demo by Maxi Ferreira was quite a lot of things happening at the same time. So let's check out this simple page, a demo that I have built for CSS Day, which changes the text every time that you click the page. So this page doesn't have view transitions yet, and the code looks a bit like this. Every time you click on the document, we update the sentence to the next thing. Admittedly, please don't add click listeners to your document. Maybe you should use a button for this, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going with this thing. Now, to add view transitions to this page, all I have to do is wrap the callback that updates the DOM, which is the next sentence part that you see there. I wrap it in document.start view transition. And then, of course, for browsers that don't support, hello, getting a call in the room. And for browsers that don't support view transitions, you add a check before that. If the document does not have the start view transition method, then just update the DOM immediately. Otherwise, fall back to this nice and enriched experience with document.start view transition. And just like that, you get this. Yes, this is with view transitions. There's a little crossfade going on, but it happens a bit fast. That's the intention, but I will slow it down for you later on. But this is with view transitions, trust me. So at this point, you might be wondering, like, okay, what just happened here? You add this one line of JavaScript to your code, and then magic happens? Well, that's actually it. You add this one line of code, and magic happens. So the magic thing that you do is this. Let's dissect it. Let's look a bit in detail what is happening there. So I have my page here. It's running at 60 frames per second. Things are updating. Nice, nice, nice. I come along with my mouse, this mouse, and then I click on the document. At that point in time, the click handler gets invoked. The click handler says, hey, you know what? You need to call document.start view transition, which has now changed color at the top that you see there. At that point in time, the browser says, hey, you know what? I need to take a snapshot. I need to take a snapshot of the current state of the screen, what you are currently seeing. So it takes a snapshot and stores it in memory. Now things get interesting, because now rendering gets paused. So everything that is happening now, what I'm about to tell you, you as a user don't get to see yet. You still see the hello CSS day thing there that you see on the right, you still see the old state. The browser continues with executing the logic, which says like, hey, I need to do this next sentence thing. It invokes it, it changes the text on the screen. Again, you still see the old sentence. And then the browser says, okay, I have executed the callback that you have passed into document start view transition. I'm going to take a new snapshot of the current state. Takes a new snapshot, so we have two snapshots, the old one and the new one. It puts these on top of each other, like so. And at that point in time, rendering gets resumed. So the page, again, runs at 60 frames per second, and then automatically a crossfade happens between the old snapshot and the new snapshot. At this point in time, you might be like, okay, but how? I explained the what, not the how. How does the browser know to capture the snapshot? Like, what should it capture? How does it know that? Well, it's because of this line of CSS in the user agent style sheet. The UA style sheet is a style sheet that ships with the browser, so it differs from browser to browser, and things that go in there are typically like the page background is white, the font is, the color is black, the font is Times New Roman, 16 pixels by default. That's all stuff that goes into the UA style sheet. And if your browser supports view transitions, this little rule will also be in there. And it says, hey, you root element, which is the HTML element, you get a view transition name with the value of root. And that thing is the clue for the browser to take the snapshot. Anything that has a view transition name declared on it, it will take a snapshot of individually. So we have these two snapshots, the old one and the new one, and the browser renders these in pseudo elements on top of your document. The old one is quite cleverly named view transition old, and the new one view transition new. And in there, in between the parentheses, goes the name that you have used. So the view transition name value, that one goes in there to target just that single one. These pseudos get rendered in a little pseudo tree, and this pseudo tree gets rendered on top of the element on which you invoked the view transition. Right now we do it on document.start view transition, which translates to the root element. So these pseudos get rendered on top of that one. In the future, we are looking to unlock something we call element transitions. So you can do like chat widget.start view transition. It's not there yet, but we are working on that. So these pseudos that you see right here, yes, that's a lot, but every one of them has a meaning and a function. The first one that we see there is the view transition root, which gets rendered on top of the document. So you have your document, well, on top of there, you have this thing sitting, which will gather all the view transition pseudos in there. We recognize the old one and the new one, which I have already mentioned. The old one fades out, and the new one fades in by default. Then we also have the image pair to do some blend mode isolation, because you want to stop the blend mode from hitting like layers underneath. You only want the old and the new one to participate in the fade in, fade out. Only use those pixels and not pixels that get visible underneath. And then the view transition group, which is responsible for the position and size, but I will tell you more about it later on. If you can't follow here, because this is code, here's a visual. I'm a visual person, I like to see things. So here I have the view transition running, and here you can see what is happening. You have the view transition root that gets injected on top of that. In there you have the group, the image pair, and then you have the new and the old one fading in and fading out. Cool, that's a basic one. You get a default fade in, fade out by default. You might be wondering right now, okay, but can I tweak the animations? Well, yes, you can. The default animations are also declared in the user agent style sheet. And as you can see, this is CSS. These are CSS animations. You have an animation name, you have an animation duration, which I have not included here, but it's all in there. So that means that you, for example, can do something like, hey, you know what, the view transition group asterisks, meaning all view transition pseudos, you get an animation duration of 2 seconds. And this property is set to inherit from the group onto the image pair onto the new and the old one. So you change the duration of all animations that are going on. And if you add this to your CSS, then the animation will slow down. And like I said you before, there is a fade in, fade out happening. Well, now you can see it, it's lasting for 2 seconds. You can also change the animations if you want, because by default, in the UA style sheet, we give you the fade in and fade out one. If you want, you can add your own keyframes there. So here I have a scale up and scale down keyframe set on the old and the new one. And just like that, the animation changes from what we had before to this. And I think this is really nice. Document.start view transition, a few lines of CSS, bam, you have this. But one warning with this though, the snapshots are nothing but pixels on a screen. So that means that the following thing won't work. Like in the old pseudo, if I want to change the color to red, that won't work because the snapshot are pixels. Think of it as looking through your phone when you are taking a photo. If you are looking at a subject in the distance and you are looking at your phone, the thing that you see on your phone is a pixel representation of the real object behind it. So if you want to change the color of the real object behind it, well, you can't just change it on the pixels. You can't say, hey, photo, change. Well, with AI, you can nowadays, but like in CSS, this won't work because you're talking to the pixels, not to the actual object. And so the color red there won't work. The same thing with accessing a custom property that was declared on that original element. You won't be able to access it. But this is also cool because the snapshots are nothing but pixels on a screen, which allows a few things to happen. Such as, if I have in the overview state, in the old state, I have a button and I give it the name of the thing, and in the new state, I have an image and I give it the name of the thing, then the button will morph into the image. So you can morph buttons into images, images into text, text into headings, headings into footers and whatnot. You can just morph anything to anything, which is amazing. The old snapshot are nothing but pixels on the screen. The new snapshot are also pixels on the screen, but they are a live view. They are still flattened, so they are still the viewfinder from your phone, not the real object, but they are live, meaning they already animate and do their own thing. And that's what is making this video work. So not this one, but if I click the pink box there, you will see that the video keeps playing as the view transition is running. And I think that's pretty sweet. Okay, so what about multiple elements? We had this one root that we have captured by default because the UA agent style sheet said so. Let's switch to another demo. This is one made by Adam Argyle, colleague of mine, part of the same team. And every time he clicks on a document, the position of the red box, of the blue box changes here. His code looks something like this, and it's exactly the same as I had before. You have this little DOM update method wrapped in document.start view transition, and that is what is happening. So we have this one by default in a UA style sheet. This property is also available to you. You can say, hey, you know what? That little box thing, the blue box there, you also get a view transition name. And you give it a unique name. So you can't reuse root because root was already taken. So you have to use box. And just like that, by adding the one declaration, the box moves around as the DOM gets updated, as the properties get updated. Great, right? So our pseudo tree at this point in time no longer looks like this. We don't just have the root, but we also have a group for the box, and in there we have the image pair for the box, and then also the old and new one for the box. And it's fading in, fading out, but since it was blue before and blue after, you don't see a visual result. But what you do see is that the box is moving position and size. If it were to be bigger, it will also change size, and that is because of the view transition group, which I have skipped before, but that one is responsible for moving things around. Again, visually, this is what it looks like. So we have our little DOM, we have the view transition layer on top of that, and in there we have the group for the root, and we also have a little group for the box. The group is moving around, and then the box is fading in, fading out. Cool. To show you this bit debugging, I have a outline set onto the groups, so you can see, okay, you have the group for the root and the group for the box. It's a bit stupid though. I also added some color changes in there. It's a bit stupid though. You can see like the root is also changing, which seems unnecessary at this point in time. Well, if you want to undo that naming, you can always use view transition name and set it to a value of none, which means you have no view transition name and the browser won't capture it. Like that, we only see the box. That is the one that is animating. The rest still gets rendered underneath. One note with this, if you click the page, you start it, and you click it in and click it again, it won't actually work. And the problem is that this view transition overlay, that one catches all the clicks. Thankfully, in CSS, there's a one line to allow clicks fall through, which is pointer events none. You declare it on this view transition overlay, and every time that you click it, it will say, I'm falling through, so the document underneath, that one will receive the click, and that's why this will work. So here you have it. I click the page, I click again, I click again, I click again, I click again, and so on and so on and so on. You will see here, though, that it gets a bit jumpy, and that is because interrupted view transitions skip to the end, which is a bit unfortunate at this point in time, but if your animation is fast enough, you won't really see it. We are potentially looking into also solving this in the future, but not today just yet. So here, this is our pseudo tree. One note with that is that we have disabled the pointer events, or we have allowed the pointer events on the view transition overlay to fall through. That is possible. It is not possible to do that on the group. Remember when I said it's possible like to morph a button into an image? Say that each one has an event listener on it, and then while it is moving around and you click it, what should happen? Should like the event listener from the button happen or the thing from the image? So that's why you can't click any of the groups, any of the elements that are animating. Okay, so that was the theoretical aspect. Let's check out some demos. Let's gobble it all together. How do we do it? Well, to do a view transition on your document, there's basically 3 steps that you need to do. One is identify and name things in your old and your new view. So these are 2 views that Maxi had in his demo, and we can just like point at things and start naming them. For example, here on the left side, I see the black background, just the background, not the content, but I also see the black background there on the right. Like the wrapper for the card with the black background, I see them, so I give them a name of background. Then I also see the cover photo in both things. Then I also see the controls. And yes, this is very interesting because the controls here on the left side only have 3 buttons, but then on the right side, they have 5 buttons. Again, no problem, because these are pixels animating, so that's what is making this work. And then we continue. We name some, clicker, are you working? Yes. We see the avatar, we see the button, we see the title, and what is interesting here is that on the right side, we see the description, but we don't have it on the left side. And then on the left side, on the right side, we also have the back button. And then on the left side, we also have this top bar, which is not present on the overview thing. So, we are giving them a name, even though they are not present in both views, because we want to animate them as well. Because if you remember, if you recall from the video that I've shown you the recording, if you went to the overview page, the top bar moved out of the way. So that's why you were also giving it a name. So we do that in our CSS. View transition name background, and so on and so on. Here, the H2 and the H1, again, the elements don't need to be of the same type. You can morph buttons into images and so on. So on the old view, we have the H2. On the new view, we have the H1, which gets the name of the title. With all the naming set up, we trigger the view transition. I've shown this code before, document.start view transition with the fallback. And then we can customize the animations using CSS, which is entirely optional. By default, you get the fade in, fade out. But here, Maxi has done some extra things, like he's making sure that the old thing, that the background scales a bit. I won't go into details here. This one is interesting, though, here, the bottom part. You can target when it's an only child. So for example, with the top bar moving out, you can say like, hey, if you only have an old top bar, slide it up. If you only have a new snapshot of the top bar, so you don't have the old snapshot, it means you're going back from the detail page to the overview page, and then you need to slide it in. Magic of CSS selectors, I like this. And this is what we had. Again, notice the top bar, it's moving out, and now it's moving back in again. Great, right? Some more demos, because the Maxi demo is like the poster child view transitions demo, but there are more demos, such as this one right here, where I'm reorganizing a grid. Well, I'm changing how many cells an item should span and the gap between the cells. If you wrap that in document.start view transition, then you get this nicely animated CSS grid, because this is a CSS grid under the hood. Great, right? This is a demo by my colleague Adam again. It's a recreation of the isotope demo where you are reordering items. He also added some little bounce effect on there. View transitions at work again. Here is a accordion that I have created, which nicely now animates everything. A little arrow goes, the title changes, and so on and so on. And then finally, here's a more fully fledged example built by Jake Archibald, former colleague of mine, where you can go from one to the other. Notice the little arrow there at the top. So like if you, let's watch a video play again. But if you go from the overview page to a detailed one, note the HTTP 203 header there, like it moves to the right. You have the little arrow showing there. And then if you go back to the previous page, like it nicely slides in and out again. Again, view transitions at work. So that's the basic of view transitions, but there is more to tell you. There's much, much more to tell you because I have only spoken about a little tip of the iceberg. I have shown you the snapshotting process and how the pseudo tree gets constructed, but there are many, many, many more things to talk to you about. I will only be highlighting a few today because we are restrained on time today. One thing that I want to talk about are the promises, because when you create a view transition, you get back a view transition object, and on there are 3 promises that you can await. The first one is to wait when the update callback is done, so the code inside that you passed as the callback has been executed. The second one is that the snapshots have been taken and the pseudo tree has been constructed. And then finally, you can await for the transition to be finished, which allows you to do some cleanup afterwards. And yes, you can also skip a transition. It's transition.skipViewTransition, and then you're done. So that were the promises. The second thing, framework integrations, because this is React Brussels after all. Good news, if any of these logos have a meaning to you, yes, view transitions work with those projects. Astro were the first to announce this. In Astro 2.9, they added view transitions. Remix has recently went from unstable to stable. This is Svelte, which have also unlocked it. If you're wondering about React itself, it comes with a caveat. This is the most simple way to get it working in React, but you have to do a flush sync, which is like working a bit against how React works, but this will basically do the trick for you. If you want a more fine-grained implementation of that, my colleague Gnome has built a hook that you can use, npm install use view transitions, and then you can use the use view transition hook, and that's how you can also make it work. Next thing is Next, which is a bit of a problem right now because there have been a lot of requests to have it supported in Next. Like there's this very long thread, please +1 this thing and push the next thing, the next team into implementing it because it's very complicated to have them do it because of timings, how things work. Somebody named Shu Ding is working on a project that you can use, implement, but it comes with a few asterisks, so it might not work. Well, it will not work in all cases, but you can most likely get it to work somehow. Okay, and then finally the last, and then so these are all things that I can mention about it. If you want to review anything, this is documentation that we have. It's up on developer.chrome.com, but as I have mentioned, it is also supported in Safari, and hopefully by the end of the year, also in Firefox. Documentation written by Jake Archibald and me. So that was same document view transition, same document view transitions for single-page applications. I've got something else to tell you, because we also have cross-document view transitions for multi-page applications, also known as cross-document view transitions for websites, because that is what an MPA is. It's 2 pages, you have a link from the one page to the other, and it works. It's supported in Chrome 1.26. The Safari team have it in Safari Technology Preview, so hopefully they will ship it in 18.1. And the Firefox team won't be working on it this year, but maybe next year. And this is pretty exciting, because that means you no longer need to re-architect your web app to an SPA in order to use view transitions. And it will feel very, very familiar, because if you recall, these are like the 3 steps for same document view transitions. You declare all the names, you trigger it, and then you customize with animations. Well, it's the second step that changes for cross-document view transitions. Instead of calling document.start of view transition, you now just have a link to another page, or for example, you have a form submitting, because that is also navigation. You're going, from one page to another page. We won't do this by default, though. There are 2 conditions when this will run. And the first one is cross-document view transitions are for same origin navigations only. So the origin is a combination of the scheme, the hostname, and the port, which means is that you can have a view transition from example.org to example.org/login, because that is same site and same origin, but you can't in this case, because login.example.org is a different origin. We are looking into relaxing this, so maybe in the future, hopefully, we can enable it for same-site cross-origin. But if you're wondering about cross-site, because I always get this question, that's not going to work. Like security reasons, cross-origin, cross-site view transitions most likely will never work. Yeah. So that was the first condition. It needs to be the same origin. Second condition is that cross-document view transitions are opt-in. Like we won't by default fade in, fade out the page for you. And the opt-in is very simple. You use this little declaration, and then your page has opted into cross-document view transitions. It says navigation auto, and auto means when you are traversing through the history. So like if you're going back and forward in your browser history, and also when the navigation history gets pushed or replaced, but not invoked by browser UI. So if you are on your website and you click a bookmark in your browser that also goes to the same website on the same origin, you won't have a view transition. But if you are on your web page and you click a link to another page also on the same origin, you will have a view transition. And here's an example. Here I have created a little stack navigator. I'm going to various pages, and if I click back, so I have customized it using back and forward and so on. And this is an MPA. Great, right? Now you might be wondering, okay, cool, but how exactly? Because I always want to know the details. What is going on the inside? So we want to go from overview to detail. We have our overview page. Again, I come along with my mouse, not this mouse, but this mouse, and I click the page, and I start navigation towards the detail page. The browser starts loading that new page. You still get to see the overview page. Loading, 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 and once it has enough data available, it will say, okay, I can render this page. I can move you from the one thing to the other. And it's right here, at this point in time, where view transitions kick into action. On the old page, we create a view transition object. We have it capture a snapshot, so we take the snapshot and we end up with the snapshot. Then on the new page, we render it behind the scenes. We also create a view transition on there. We take a snapshot, so we have the second snapshot, and we store it, yeah, like that. And what then happens, this is the magic part, the snapshot from the old page gets moved over to the new view transition object. And then when the page needs to be shown, we remove the old view transition object because it no longer has a meaning. And then at this point in time, everything is ready for the view transition to run. So we actually change the pixels on the screen, and whoop, the view transition runs, and you get to see the new page. So that's MPA view transitions. If you're wondering about customization, because sometimes you do want to do that, like these pages, I have overview, detail, and about. If I go from overview to detail, I want to make the image bigger. But if I go to another page, I just want to fade out the main content and maybe move the sidebar around. So you do want to customize this. So let's take a look, because at each of these pages, we have several events that we can use. These are on the old page, these are on the null page. So which one can we use to just in time change the view transition? Well, the answer here is unfortunately none, because all of these events either fire too early or fire way too late for you to have access to that view transition object. For example, the navigate event that gets fired fires before it actually is resolved to which location you are going to. So some redirects could be happening in the back, so you need the information of the old page and the new page. You need to know which URL am I coming from and which URL am I going to. The navigate event doesn't offer you that. Then page height, the second one, well, that one fires too late because the page is already hidden, and maybe you wanted to change the view transition names on certain elements before that happened. So we had to create two new events for you. On the old page, we have page swap, and on the new page, we have page reveal. And in those events, if a view transition is happening because you have opted in, you can then manipulate the view transition. So if e.viewTransition is set, go change it. Here's an example where I'm using this. I have a page, I click on Adam's name, his avatar grows bigger. I click on my name, my avatar name grows bigger. I then click on Yuna's name, her avatar grows bigger, and so on and so on. And this is customized just in time, using a little bit of JavaScript in the page swap event. In there you can see I extract the profile name from the target URL that I am going to, and then I'm setting the view transition name on that specific person's avatar and that specific person's name. And then also I do some cleanup. This is to work nice with back-forward cache. Come ask me questions afterwards if you have questions about this. So we did this on the page swap page, on the old page. We also have to do this on the new page, because as I mentioned, it's a snapshot that get copied over from the old page to the new page. It's not the entire object. So again, on the new page, you also need to do a little bit of customization. What is helpful there is the navigation activation information that we give you, which is a new thing that is also shipping in Chrome, which allows you to get the navigation activation information inside of page swap and in page reveal. So you get info about the local URL, which you already have, but also the finally resolved destination target URL that is available in there. It looks like this. These are a classic navigation history entry objects. And one final thing that I do want to mention to you is render blocking, because sometimes you want to wait on the new page to have a certain element be present there. By default, the browser goes like, hey, you know what? I have parsed all the CSS, I have parsed all the blocking JavaScript, I have enough HTML, I'm going to render the page for you, even though the content is still streaming in. You can bypass that using render blocking, and you do it like this. You add this in your head, and then you can say, hey, you know what, browser? I will decide when you get to render. You can render when you find this element in the DOM. If it can't find it and it sees the closing slash HTML at the bottom, it will also render. But be careful with this, because you are basically overriding all the heuristics that the browser has and gives you. And also this only means that the element should be present in the DOM. Like if you have an image with this ID, the presence of the image tag with that ID is enough for the rendering to trigger, while the image itself could still be loading, so you don't want to do that. And with that, I'm at the end of the talk. This was cross-document free transitions for multi-page applications, also known as websites. Again, we have a bunch of documentation on it, specifically for the MPA part, but also for the SPA part. And also on chrome.dev, you can find a bunch of demos that I have shown you. All the MPA demos are available on there. With that, thanks for your attention. And again, if you have any questions about CSS, the CSS working group, or scuba diving, come find me in the break or ask on Discord. Thank you.